Everybody, what's up? Circus here, coming at you with another top 10 list. Today, Herf and I are going to be doing the top 10 non-interactive decks in Duel Links. Now, this is something that Herf and I hold near and dear to our heart because one of the decks that might be on this list is what brought us together. So, let's get right into it, Herf. What do you think number 10 is?
Well, basically, I put this list together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of fun doing it because I hate interacting with my opponent.
Right, right. Yeah,
Uh,
you're known for that.
so a lot of it is just like stuff that I enjoyed, actually. Um, so I rated them on essentially in my brain in two different ways. So how good the deck was in its prime format,
Mm-hmm.
and how much interaction it allowed between its opponent. So decks that were really good and had like moderate uninteraction, or decks that were super high in uninteraction but were moderate in goodness, so would yield
And of
different
course,
results.
you're going to disagree with us, so you can put those in the comments below. Put your top
Yeah.
10 list. So,
So number 10,
10. Here we go.
probably the hardest one for me to come up with, but Sea Stealth Attack Control with Citadel Whale.
Yep.
So this
That was
deck,
just brutal when it came out.
yeah, I mean, in its format, there were not a lot of ways to break through the board. Whale protects all your monsters from targeting. Sea Stealth Attack essentially just floodgated all the monsters in the game because none of them
Yeah.
were immune to destruction. So you couldn't destroy it by battle,
Yep.
and you couldn't destroy Sea Stealth Attack. I mean, you could banish it with Cosmic Cyclone, but it was pretty uninteractive. There were not a lot of ways to break that board, and it's pretty easy to get to with Gen X Undyne being able to essentially pseudo-search the whale. So
Yep.
it's pretty good, relatively high in uninteraction at the time, so that's why it's at number 10.
And like the Citadel will, it has the effect of if you target something, right, it can negate it, which is just
Target any monster on the board, or any water monster you control.
yeah, you can negate the
So,
activation if you do destroy that card, which at the time, like, Econ was so hot, and you try to Econ just anything on the board on your opponent's side, it would just negate it, destroy it. Oh, it was just terrible.
so between that and Sea Stealth Attack came together for a pretty disgusting duo.
All right, so what's number 9 on your list, buddy?
I put number 9 as Fur Hires, so more uninteractive than Sea Stealth Attack.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were actually, I would say, slightly less uninteractive, so you could interact with them a little more. However, they were also a lot stronger. Basically, the two main ways that you were able to get out of interacting with your opponent
Mm-hmm.
is through something like Fur Hire Whiz.
Oh my God, yeah.
So basically, an Omni negate for like any spell or trap.
Yep.
Pretty dang good, and has any spell or trap effect.
Yeah.
So
Once per turn. So if you wanted to do something, you had to do it twice to get by this thing. You know what I
is
mean?
that
If you
actually once per turn?
yeah.
You can only once per turn. So yeah,
Yeah.
and it's important that it's effective because that means it can also negate stuff in the grave.
Oh, there you go. Which didn't come up a lot at the time. It was more like trying to play through back row or something like that. So if you
And
wanted to
then,
hit him with a wall of D, you had to do it twice.
yeah, and the other main reason that this is uninteractive is because of their boss monster. I can't remember what his name is exactly.
Dyna Lock. Yeah.
Yeah, so you couldn't activate back row because of Wiz. You need to have Dyna, so they can only swing
Attack
into
Dyna.
Dyna.
Yep.
So your Wiz was like essentially protected from being able to be
Well, this
destroyed
card
by
had to
battle.
be like emergency ban listed or whatever because you could put 2 Dynas on the field and then your opponent could not attack because you can
That's
only
true.
attack that card, it says. So when you have 2 of them, you can't attack. The computer won't let you attack.
Yeah, so it's relatively high in uninteractability, but it was also pretty good. Although it obviously, in terms of today's standards, it had decent interaction.
Right. All right. So where are we going next, Herf?
My next deck on the list is Witchcrafters.
What? Come on now.
Yes.
Really?
Just Vera being the best monster Omni negate
Mm-hmm.
and so easily to get out. I mean, it made for a lot of very annoying duels. Because that was the thing, right? You just no monster effects, and then collaboration. You can't respond to my effects.
Right.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, they weren't like tier 0. I mean, they were maybe tier 1 for a little bit, so they didn't like warp the meta, but they were a very strong deck with very high in just saying you cannot activate your effects. I mean, you just can't. I mean, collaboration basically acted as a slightly worse anti-magic arrows
Well, I
because
think
you
people.
couldn't.
Right. Yeah. When they attack, there's nothing you can
Mhm,
do.
mhm.
Well, I was just gonna say with the Veer, people are just still mad about it, even though the deck isn't seeing a lot of play. People are still mad about Madame Veer she's even in the game.
Yeah, I mean it's the best walking monster Omni negate in the game. Just point like plain and simple. It's crazy.
Well, the
I mean,
cost isn't really a cost for them. That's the
because
thing.
it adds back the spell. So I mean, they're
Right.
able to loop their negates. They're able to swing for like 6K attack multiple times. I mean, and that's why we're at number 8 right now.
All right. Let's see what's number 7. I can't wait. Actually, I know, but I'm pretending I don't. And number 7,
I put down Cyber Angels. So back in
yes.
the big Cyber Angel meta, if you went second with combo, there was nothing you could do as you're just getting OTK. I
That's
mean,
true.
simple as that. I mean, if the opponent went second with combo, you
Yep.
died.
Well, yeah. When we were discussing this before we did this video, you said you were thinking, oh, maybe Cyber Angels don't belong on there. And I said, back then, the only interaction you had with Cyber Angels was you got to decide which monster was going to the graveyard. And sometimes you didn't even get to do that because you only had one monster on the board.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people consider this to be the first tier 0 deck in Duel Links.
Yep.
Um, just very, very strong. I mean, it didn't last a super long time, but when it was in the game, I mean, it was pretty game breaking, and
Yeah.
that's why they're at number 7.
Yeah, they were very devastating. I still have nightmares from when that came out because just like when I buy into boxes, I have really bad luck farming too. So I had a hard time getting these cards. Man, I must have farmed so many times, run out of keys, and have to collect new keys just to duel some more and not get the cards. It was terrible. I was one of those guys who was like, come on, just give me a Dakini. Just give me one Dakini. Come on now.
But yeah, so I mean, the combination of them being very, very strong
Hmm.
and having relatively low interaction at the time
Right.
just makes us number 7.
All right, moving along to number 6. What do you got there, buddy?
Kokai Mirror,
Now this is
baby.
you love this deck, right?
I mean, this deck is pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. And the reason that
Is
this
it?
deck
Is it?
is where it is because everything in the deck is searchable off
Mm-hmm.
of core, or the iron core, or no,
Yep.
diamond
Diamond
core.
core. Yep.
Searches everything. For a while, they were actually able to play Hatronade, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yep.
Kwakimiro Ice has actually been used in several different formats.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a blanket way to get rid of special summon monsters. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
you send a card to the grave, right?
Yeah. Discard
Yep.
a card, destroy a special summon monster on the field, not once per turn.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
That's pretty nice. And then you have, and that's not even before you get into the wall and the it's god dang it. It's the
Sandman.
wall
Sandman.
and the Sandman. Yep, that's true. That's right. Being
Yep.
able to negate spells or traps.
Yep.
So, and then that's before you even get to Diamond Core's second effect, which is you can't destroy any of my monsters, and my monsters don't kill themselves.
Right. And then of course the big boss himself, Maximus.
So,
Yeah, just coming out.
I mean, honestly, this could have been higher on the list. I
And
mean, honest.
it was another deck. If you went second, you could just sack your opponent in one turn. It didn't matter what board they had. You could just come out and be like, "You die, you die."
Yeah, and the only reason that this isn't higher on the list, in my opinion, is because the super control lock your opponent's board kind of deck didn't last very long, and it just became a very popular techable engine, and just being able to search Maximus OTK, which isn't really Kawaki Miru anymore. That's just their engine being used somewhere else in a different deck.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, very high in uninteractiveness, was very, very strong. However, quickly morphed into some Frankenstein hybrids that I didn't choose to recognize.
Like Neo's Kawaki, wasn't that a thing
Yeah,
for a while?
Kawaki Neos was pretty
Kawaki
high, and then
Neos,
there's
yeah.
like Kawaki Neos Cyberdark. It's like that's not Kawaki anymore.
Right.
Sorry, but it's just
Yeah.
not. So that's why
Well,
ultimately I didn't rank higher. But
there was also combo Kawaki for a while.
yeah. And
And
then not to mention
control.
that control.
Yeah.
But
All right.
yeah, so 6.
All right. Moving on to number 5, then we're halfway through.
Pretty recent, so you guys might have some PTSD, but Element Sabers.
Yeah.
Just
That was the ultimate control
thrived
deck. Yeah.
thrived off not letting your opponent play the game. No fun, please.
Yeah. No fun, please.
Palace can search Malehu. Malehu can book everything. You had the Lapalia negate all the back row. You could very often go into Kaliga turn 1,
Mm-hmm.
which basically just allowed you to lock your opponent out of all monster effects. Uh, just really broken. I mean, it had Cocytus.
Yep.
Cocytus, I mean, you could ultimately just paste the entire duel. And all the Element Saber cards were able to change their attribute in the grave. So if you had one in the grave, you essentially had them all in the grave.
Yep.
And it just led, I mean, between Cocytus and Kaliga and Lapalia, Malehu, all searchable off Palace, it quickly led to being very, very problematic. And ultimately, they're now dead because of it.
Yeah. People are going to have PTSD definitely off of this deck for some time to come. But as the video we just recorded shows, Alistair perhaps is not going anywhere.
Alistair is here to stay, I believe, but this version of Alistair is dead.
Yeah.
It's just thankfully
Never coming back.
Well, I liked Element Sabers a lot. Unpopular opinion, but a lot of people hate it. I mean, Element Sabers may come back in the future if they give us their like alternate boss monsters, but I don't see that happening.
All right. I liked Element Sabers too. I don't know why people hate it so much. Probably because when you lose to a deck a lot, you start to hate it.
That's true. So number 4 on the list, a deck that was actually probably my favorite deck, or my favorite meta deck of all time, probably.
Oh God.
Amano Stun.
Really?
Just Amano Stun was fun to play. So if you guys aren't aware, Amano Iwado came to the game, and it says your opponent cannot activate any monster effects. Period.
Yep. But
that's it.
It's got a caveat to it.
The cost, or the perceived cost, is that in the end phase it goes back to your hand. However, according to rulings on spirit monsters, if they're unable to return to the hand that turn, they remain on the field as long as they're face up.
Right. So people would do what, Herf?
They would use dual standby, which allowed you to draw an extra card at the cost of not being able to activate any monster, spell, or trap cards your first turn.
Because what was happening before then, people would play what's called Taya Burn, and they would use dual standby, get an extra card, and just burn the hell out of you and win on turn 1 or 2. So then Konami's like, hey, I got an idea. Let's make it so they can't activate any spells or traps or effects on their first turn.
So Amano actually essentially was broken with the skill because the skill said couldn't return back to the hand. So then the ruling of the monster was like, okay, I can't return back to the hand. So it just was a floodgate that stayed on the field with all of their back row were counter traps.
Right.
Also, it's important to note that if you activated any other effect that wasn't a monster, they had a live negate almost at all times.
Right. I think this was also called like a mono stun or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it was very much a stun deck. It was just you activated an effect. Nope, I have a winning board now.
Right.
Like, I mean, it wasn't that good. Ultimately, it became more of a gimmick. I mean, it was a really good deck for a while, but
you had to open a mono Iwado. That was the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you had to open a mono. They nerfed a lot of the cards. All those things essentially led to the deck dying.
Right.
And of course, they nerfed the skill, which was the final nail in the coffin.
Right. Which they should have, let's be honest.
The skill was unhealthy.
Right.
I mean, it just was.
All right, next.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Spell books. Spell books.
Yep.
All right. Being able to open Silent Magician plus Spellbook of Fate reliably. Silent Magician saying, you can't activate any spells or I'll negate you.
Yep.
And then Spellbook of Fate being a non-targeting banish, which is a mechanic in this game that to this day is still very, very broken.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it came out, this was just devastating. Like, I remember it was like, oh, I'm going to summon and he's going to banish me, and then I'm going to try to summon again, and he's going to loop on his turn to have another fate, and I can't play now. I can't summon 2 monsters on 1 turn in this meta. It was very hard to do.
I mean, even now, like, a Spellbook of Fate is very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Konami is so deathly afraid to give us any more meaningful Spellbook support because they know that this deck will run rampant and no one will be able to play the game.
Right. Well, they just have to keep nerfing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they cannot give us more Spellbook support at this point.
Well, wasn't Eternity nerfed at one point too? Because they had to slow down the looping. Because when you use the spell books, they have a cost of, like, when you use Fate, you got to banish like 3 spell books from your grave, and they go to the banish pile. Well, you use the Eternity to bring stuff back from the banish pile, and when things were unnerfed, you could have what, like 6 Fates in one game or something like that.
Yeah, Eternity was at 1.
Yeah.
So, and hypothetically, with Eternity at 3, you can loop for as many times as you want, if you know how to do it.
Well, yeah, because you could copy the Eternity in the grave and stuff too, right? Mm-hmm. So you could just, you could just keep bringing stuff back, and it was nasty to play against.
That's why this deck is at number 3.
Yeah, spell books were definitely uninteractive controlling deck, but then they were hitting you for like 500 at a time, or maybe they'd use a spell book of power and boost up or something like that.
I mean, but they had the Magician. I mean, Silent Magician and OTK.
Eventually that came out, but at first, when it first came out, it was Blue Boy Beatdown. Well, I guess they had other versions where they'd go into this one, the Destroyer. Remember, there was also the Prophecy. Remember, it was like a 30-card version. We were playing stuff from the grave, and
Yeah, I mean, that version was very good, but it eventually morphed into Silent Magician with spellbooks, which, in my opinion, was much more powerful.
Right. Okay.
And then, number 2!
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God.
6 Samurai.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with this, because this was another one of those things where there has a built-in negate, and at the time, not a lot of decks could deal with that.
I mean, they had a negate, they had a bounce, which is important. They didn't destroy stuff, they bounced it back to the hand.
Yes.
Which was, I mean, was kind of broken, because a lot of things were starting to get protection from destruction, but then this deck had all of its removal being bouncing.
Yeah, that was terrible.
So they didn't have any inherent protection to that.
Yep.
As well as, so one of the most broken things were either Shien with Inishi, or Shien with dual wield.
Oh my God, yeah.
So if you
not Rihan. Oops.
If you so Shien negates spell or traps. If you tried to flood the board with monsters to play around Shien, they could dual wield everything back to the hand.
Right.
So how are you supposed to play the game?
You don't.
Trick question. Yeah, you don't. So
yeah, you try to summon into that, and it was just like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah, like if you tried to play the game going second, 6 Samurai just sat there and left.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Honestly. You summon 2 monsters, and bam.
They were so consistent with Dojo at 3 as well. Like, they had to emergency hit the Dojo to 2, and even then, I mean, the deck was just...
Dojo wasn't even enough. Not even close to being enough.
And especially once they got a World Legacy Clash.
Oh my God.
The deck an entirely new revival, because they were able to dual wield essentially while they had 2 monsters on the field.
Right.
They could clash one off, bounce 2, and then bring the other monster OTK. Like, what?
Right. It was just
No,
sickening.
unhealthy,
Yeah.
unhealthy.
All
And
right.
then number one.
No, wait.
Go ahead.
No drum
Honorable
roll. This is
mentions.
honorable mentions. Yeah. And I want to do one. This would be the deck that brought Herf and I together many years ago. Do you remember what it was, Herf? We used to do a podcast on Sunday nights, and we brought Herf on to talk about a deck that he was into, very uninteractive, and
Of course.
he came on and talked about it, and it got me into the deck, and we pretty much ended up starting another show because of it called Garbage Phase, and that is Cardians.
Yeah, I mean, the
Cardians.
deck is fun to pilot,
Oh, it is. It is.
but your opponent can't really meaningfully disrupt you at any point, except to
Nowadays, I think it
first normal
can,
summon.
but back then it was a lot harder. You know, then you know what I mean.
I mean, even now, I mean, the biggest hindrance to this deck is that if you don't open a starter, you
Right.
lose.
Yeah.
But even now, if you have a starter, a lot of times you can OTK going second.
Right, because you're gonna go into the what is the deer? I gotta remember all this. The deer is back row, right?
Yeah,
And then the boar is monster. So you're popping
Yes.
back row, you're popping monsters.
I mean, realistically, you can pop an entire board pretty easily.
Yeah,
And
and
then the synchro just floodgates the back or the graveyard effects.
right.
So if you know how to pilot the deck, you can reliably go through, wipe an opponent's board, and OTK even through a Sphere Karibo.
Yeah, like you could get 6,000 attack on board or something like that, right? No, what was it? 5,000?
You can get 6K on board. It's just a lot harder than 5K.
Okay, because you could do what, like 2 synchros and then into your moon, is it?
Yeah, I mean,
Was
you
that
can
what
put
it
a
was?
synchro plus 2 moons on board is 6K.
Yeah, okay.
So
I remember playing this deck a lot and people just saying how degenerate we were for doing that.
yeah, but it was fun. So suck on that.
Did you have an honorable mention? I thought you had one.
I guess stall.
Oh yeah,
stall-
all the stall decks
All
in
the stall
history.
decks out
Yeah,
there.
the Golden
Ruby
Ladybug
people
one. That's
say.
the one I want to recognize. There was a KC Cup where there was a Golden Ladybug version. It was Last Gamble. You had Golden Ladybug, and just you wanted to draw into these and just gain life points every turn, and then you were just playing just different traps that stalled the game out. And I played a KC Cup. I think it was like an RRQ, and I got like a top 500 with it in my region. It got a bunch of prismatic cards out of it and stuff. It was pretty sick. It was pretty sick.
All right. Is it time?
It is time now. It is time.
Number one,
Number
is
one.
Dark Lords.
Yes.
Just, I mean, I don't know how much we really need to say about the deck because everybody knows how bad it was. But you were able to loop the negate
Yes.
for every single turn. The untargeting monster negate for every single turn. Every card, every Dark Lord card in the deck was searchable.
Yes.
And you could easily search more than once per turn. Ixchel, you discard Ixchel and one Dark Lord card in your hand to draw 2. Well, discarding Dark Lords isn't really a cost because the graveyard is basically your second hand.
Right.
So you were able to extremely consistently get through the deck, make your ideal board. You were able to, what was the card? The one that sends to the graveyard. I forget now. Dark Lord. It's on the bottom row on the far left.
Desire?
Desire, yes. Desire was your main OTK card because then you could negate your own desire. It goes back to 3K attack.
Oh,
and then you
right.
can send more cards. So Desire and Morningstar were ultimately your 2 boss monsters.
Yep.
But the deck was uninteractive because you could protect yourself from destruction at any time. You could protect yourself from targeting. You could protect, like, you were able to run a bunch of backer removal because the deck was so consistent. You can negate all your opponent's monster effects. The list goes on.
It was just a disgusting deck, and I'm glad it's dead. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, the deck was the best in this format as long as it was playable.
Right.
So that leads me to believe that this is the most uninteractive deck in the history of Duel Links.
It was just hard
Was
to do anything against the deck. Even if you could get a board on the field, you were not getting through their board. You weren't. It was very difficult to do.
it's true.
All right, we're
So,
gonna leave it there, Herf. I hope you guys liked our top 10. I'm sure you have your own thoughts. Make sure to get those in the comments below. But we're gonna get out of here. But you need to get in the Discord because that's where we host all of our tournaments, and we have a great new player channel. So get in there and ask for help. Herf will be in there telling you to get Dark Lords.
well, not. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of you coming out and checking out the YouTube. Let us know if you want us any other top 10 lists for us to do. We love doing them. You guys love watching them, it seems like. So, perfect duo.
Yep, we're gonna get out of here. I'm Circus.
See ya.
That's Herf. All right, see you guys.